All right, chapter 11's on financial markets. Now, money and financial markets go hand in hand. Financial markets are basically when you invest money in a company or a group of companies, and the better the company does, the more money you get back. So you can think of it as a type of gambling, I guess. Now let's backtrack for a second. There are two main ways to get rich in the U.S. One is starting your own business, and the second way is to invest. Now, obviously, you can get rich by being a rapper or movie star or whatever, but statistically, most people in the country get rich either by starting their own business or investing in businesses that have already started. And now, investing is probably the easiest way to make a bunch of money because anybody can invest. You just need some money. You can invest with 15 bucks and turn it into 100. You just need to know how to do it. There are three things you need to consider when you first start investing. First is risk. Risk is the possibility that you're going to lose money. Okay, there's two types of risks. There's market risks, which are things that affect all companies and make all companies' value go down. And then there are specific risks, which only affect one company. And a specific risk would be a company making a really bad decision. The second thing you need to consider is rewards, which are just exactly what it sounds like. It's your potential to make a bunch of money. And so while you want risks to be low, you want rewards to be high. And so you want it to be unlikely that you're going to lose money. But when you make money, you want to make a lot of money. And the last thing is liquidity. Liquidity is how easily you can change your stocks or what you've bought with your money into cash. It's how easy you can get out of the market if you want. Generally, you're going to want high liquidity, and if you have low liquidity, you're going to end up they're going to be like lower risk options if liquidity is low. Now, when you go to buy stock, there are three major stock companies or stock markets in the U.S. First is the New York Stock Exchange. This is the biggest and kind of the most famous. This is like world famous. People talk about the New York Stock Exchange all the time. You should just know what it is for general purposes. People talk about it constantly. Then there's the American Stock Exchange, and then the National Associations of Securities Dealers Automated Quotations, aka NASDAQ. NASDAQ is kind of unique because it's an electronic stock market that has no physical location. So it doesn't, it exists in the ether. It's out there on the internet. It's like a website. It doesn't have any physical component to it. It's just online. Now, when we were talking about risks, I mentioned market risks. Well, the way you measure market risks, whether you decide if all companies are doing well or all companies are doing bad, is you can use kind of these instruments to measure the stock market. And so the first one you might have heard of is called the Dow Jones Industrial Average. People refer to it as the Dow usually. This is kind of the most popular one, and it's just a good solid gauge of day-to-day stock market activity. So, and how they figure out the Dow is they take the 30 most traded stocks on the New York Stock Exchange and they kind of average them and see if they're doing well or they're doing not well. And so when everybody is making money and improving, then it goes up and it shows that the entire stock market is going up. Standard & Poor's 500, aka S&P 500. This is 500 largest companies in the U.S. Has about 75% of the U.S. stock market value. So let's see, why would corporations sell stock? First of all, when you start a business, you need money to make money. You need to buy things. You need to buy equipment and building space and pay employees. And so the reason they sell stock is to raise revenue, raise money, not revenue, but they are looking to raise money so that they can invest in their own business. You can think of like each stock as like a mini investment, like a mini investor. Like if I think if a company is going to do really well, then I'll buy a stock in it, and if it does better, then I get something called dividends. And dividends, you get them usually quarterly, which is like 4 times a year, every 3 months. And what they are the company figures out how much of the company you own, and they give you that percentage. If you own 5% of the company, you get 5% of the total profits. That makes sense. Capital gains. This is what people usually think of when they think of buying stock. Is you buy at a low price and then you sell it at a higher price. And so if you think a company is just going to blow up, like in the the 70s or 80s, Apple came along. So like that's when Apple was invented. Anybody who invested in Apple when Apple first started out, you could buy, one stock for $1. This is just an example. I don't know the actual figures, but you could buy a stock for $1. 5 years later, Apple is one of the biggest companies in the world, and one stock is worth like $1,000. So if you buy 20 stocks for $20, wait 5 years, and it's the biggest company in the world, and then you sell those 20 stocks for $1,000 a piece, then you made $20,000. You've turned $20 into $20,000. And so that's what capital gains is. And then there is capital loss. People do lose a lot of money in the stock market. I think we talked about that in Western Civ with the stock market crash of '29 and the Great Depression. So the reason stock prices go up and down is supply and demand. Supply and demand sets everything. So if a stock is in really high demand, or let's backtrack here. So if the stock price goes up, then demand goes up and supply goes down because people bought a lot of them. If the stock price falls, then demand goes down and supply goes up because people don't want to buy all this money. And so there are more stocks circulating. When price and supply and demand hit an equilibrium, that's what the stock's price gets set at. So you can buy and sell stocks in 2 different ways. One, you can use a full service broker. This is like the old timey brokers who sit on the phone and talk people into buying and selling. You might have seen them in movies. They're usually like fast talking salesman types. They give advice and they make the trades for you. So you're like, hey, we have a really good opportunity to get in on the ground floor of this budding company, blah blah blah, and they kind of sell it to you. The other type is an online broker or discount broker. Online broker is what most people use now. This is when you go online, you're like, hey, I want to buy 20 stocks of, so and so company, PlayStation, Apple, whatever you want to buy. If they go up, then you make more money. If they go down, you lose money. Simple as that. But you don't get any advice with online brokers, and so that's the main downfall. And so nobody's guiding you in a direction where you're gonna usually where you're gonna make a decent amount of money. So over the long run, generally, stock market is gonna pay out more money over the long run than the short run. Because you might buy a company and it might be really high price for each stock, and then it dips down, and then maybe it comes back. And so it's kind of wavy in the short term. Like you have good days and bad days on the stock market. Over the long run though, generally, companies that are unsuccessful will just fall off. They'll disappear. And so over the long run, the stock market is going to generally go up. So, like anything, the stock market is risky. Like I said, it's kind of like gambling. And so, if you have a stock that is high risk, then you're generally going to have high reward and you're going to have high liquidity. The problem is you want to have low risk. So if you have low risk, you're probably going to not get as much of a reward, probably not going to have much liquidity, and so it's not going to be as appealing. We're going to stop there for now. Go take your quiz.